What's going on, world? Welcome to another edition of the Black Mental Health Podcast. I'm your host, Reg. Joined today with me is a very special guest. Especially if you follow the mental health community very closely. He's heavy in there, especially when it comes to men and healing, and we're gonna get into all of that. Brother, I don't introduce people because I don't want to leave a credential out. So introduce yourself to the people. Let them know who you are.
Hey, what's going on, good people? This is James Harris in Richmond, Virginia. I'm a father, I'm a veteran, I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm also a therapist. And I'm also an author. I got a book, Man, Just Express Yourself, which is on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, Target, Walmart, and of course my website, mentalheal.com. And definitely appreciate you having me, bro.
No problem. I had to get one of the gurus in the mental health space right now on. You can't. That's one of the goals for me this year is to reach out to the brothers that's making the differences and having those conversations. Bringing a little bit more unification. I feel like there's a surge, and I know you probably see it on your end of like mental health being accepted in the Black community a little bit more. Now, I do have a question for you in regards to that. Do you feel like it's in your role because you talk about it and you follow these things, you're in NAMI, or it's an actual shift happen?
I think it's um I think it's both. I think it's a commercial shift happening for sure,
Okay.
with a lot of celebrities and athletes and stuff like that. But hopefully it's more of a actual need, and they taking it serious opposed to just gaining their attention that's surrounding it. So hopefully it is an actual for the people type thing opposed to them just wanting the accolades for it for healing and stuff like that. So it's definitely um they definitely bring a lot of people with the awareness of it just based on their celebrity status. So hopefully, they can continue to do that. But hopefully, again, it's not just a front, because people are actually hurting, people are actually
Mhm.
going through some things. So, but nah, it's definitely more prevalent now than it has been for as long as I can remember.
And that's a perfect transition of one of the questions I wanted to ask you. What made you get started in the mental health space? What was that? Was it something like in your childhood? Like, did you always know you wanted to go this route? Like, how'd you get started within the space?
Oh man, like I mean, I always knew I wanted to be a hustler, to be honest with you. But as far as like living it, yes, my lifestyle, the way I was raised, drove me to the field. To be honest with you, excuse me. So I was a ward of the state, and I emancipated myself at 16. But being a ward of the state, foster home and group home counseling was mandatory weekly. I
Hold
guess
on,
that's
before
my
you go any deeper, what does that mean? A water of the state? I'm not
yeah.
familiar.
Okay, I was in foster home and group home.
Okay.
So being in the system,
Mhm.
therapy was mandatory on a weekly basis, and for me, it just was a disconnect culturally from the therapist who was providing service. So it was typically an older white male or older white woman, and just the age difference, the ethnicity difference, the um, not being from the culture, whether that was being eclectic enough to serve me, and part of it, I could have just been a stubborn kid. But to me now, in hindsight, and being a therapist, I know it was definitely that disconnect. So moving forward, though, so at that point, I didn't benefit as much as I could from therapy. It just was a task, and I felt that they were there just to check the box. So then, joined the army, 2 deployments, one Iraq, one Afghanistan, and I didn't give up on therapy. I tried it again, and this time it was pretty much the same thing.
Mhm.
Older Caucasian lady, no combat experience, um, and that's part of the reasons why a lot of veterans tend to go to the groups, because you got that shared experience, you got that lived experience with somebody else. So for me, it was more so like, yo, I'm gonna have to do this. I'm, just ensure that young kid in the projects or that veteran or that man, have somebody who look like them or can display a certain level of empathy and competence, can provide them treatment. So that's pretty much how my journey started and why I am where I am.
You touched on like three or four things. You went too fast with my questions, but we're gonna dial it back and go through all of them.
Nah,
So
that's cool. Yeah.
uh You talked about the being in the group home and being within the system. What was that experience like? Because I always try to use my platform as to if you were talking to your younger self. So as a kid right now that's listening, or or someone that's been through it and they're ashamed of they past, or you coming from that clinical lens, what advice what can you share with now being on the outside of it as opposed to when you were in it and what you were going through, and now looking back on what things you would probably tell yourself if you were like giving yourself therapy back then?
Yeah. So to be honest with you, I still work closely with Department of Social Services to ensure that the system is better now for the young ones in the system. Like I said, I emancipated myself at 16 because the system to me was, it wasn't helping that I felt. And at that time, you aged out at 18 anyway. So for me, I was like,
Mhm,
nah, I might as well, I can do this on my own. And,
mhm,
so for me, looking back, if I had to talk when I talk to young kids, and if I had to talk to myself back then, I would definitely tell them take advantage of the system, because regardless of what system it is, the system will take advantage of you. They will utilize you for whatever they can, whether that is that monetary value that you're giving to the facility that you're housed in, or whether that is, people getting extra stipends for you or whatever the case. So use those as well to your benefit. Take advantage of school. And like now in Virginia, something that we implemented, I was a part of, is having people within the system, foster care, group home, any of those systems, they get college, or trade schools provided, or they can stay in at least up above 18, so they wouldn't just age out and then be homeless. So there's a lot of stuff that I advocated for that I'm happy that, was able to be received and
mhm,
observed well um, from my transition in. That was over 18 years ago. You know what I mean?
mhm.
I'd be 35 this year, next month actually. So, when I left at 16, want none of those things in place. It was,
Mhm.
you're back, you're on your own. So definitely take advantage of the system is what I tell myself then and what I tell them now.
I don't know if you ever spoke about it publicly, and but because I do follow your work, I do follow some of the interviews you did. But how did you end up in that space to start with, of getting in the group homes and going and like that? Like,
Yeah, yeah. So my dad died when I was 5.
okay,
Health issues, I believe, and my mom also health issues when I was around 8. She's still alive though. She has epilepsy and she have strokes, right? So she live in a facility in New York now, um, and I haven't seen her since because of the COVID situation. So it's
mm,
been over a year since I've actually seen my mom. But anyway,
wow,
um, so at like 8 or 9, well, from 7 to about 9, I was like typically the man of the house, taking care of my younger brother and sister. Anyway, like one day or something, she was unresponsive. So ambulance had to be called, blah, blah, blah. So at that point, of course, they come out and say, oh man, if this happens again, who's going to be there to
mm,
take care of the children? Da, da, da. So that's how the state got involved and said, no, you can't take care of your children because you can have a
mm,
seizure at any time or you can become unconscious at any time. So obviously they had to remove us from the home
right.
basically. Yeah, on
Do,
one of those type situations.
do y'all talk about that like as siblings or as mother and child, like the impact that had on like the relationships?
We still good, everybody's still close knit. It ain't, like those health things, some of them are hereditary, some of them, like it ain't really nothing we can do about it. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? It ain't like she planned to have seizures or strokes and stuff
Hmm.
like that. So, nobody's at fault. There's not any resentment there.
Hmm. Now, because I would think, you always see in the movie and everything with movies, they're hype and over exaggerated, but the impact that the separation of the two, of like being pulled from the mother, or even how brothers and sisters get separated and affect they bond long term, and how they interact with one another, because you may not go to the same families, or you go to different families and they get separated,
Yeah.
things of that
So
nature.
that did happen as far as, we was in separate group homes.
Mm,
But like the dynamic was still there, the bond
okay.
was still there. I mean, we got different walks of life, as
Mm,
far as, my brother has been incarcerated more than half his life, so
mm,
we did have different journeys that were taken, but, we still ensure that we kept in contact and grew together,
mm.
just different choices.
Okay. Okay. And so was that the thing? Well, not the separation, but after the group home, you got the emancipation, and was that the thing that forced you into the military, or you always knew you wanted to go in the military?
Nah, man, yeah, that was definitely one of the reasons why I chose it. So I went to a military high school,
Okay.
um, and I went there for the primary reason of like I was working, like I was 16,
Mm,
so I was house hopping, couch hopping, and staying in hotels or whatever the case is. But also I went there because I didn't have to. We wore uniforms, so I didn't have to buy clothes. So the money that I was
mm,
having, I make sure that my brother and sister was good, and
mm.
their respective group homes in case they needed some. Because at that time, like you go to school, you can
You
get
gotta stay
P's,
fresh.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I ain't want them to go through that.
Mm,
But for me, so I wound up graduating or whatever, went to college my freshman year. And of course, I'm still homeless at this point, like with no address. So when it was summer, winter, spring break, and stuff like that, I'm sneaking back in my dorm on campus. You know what I'm
mm.
saying? Everybody else going home or going out of town or whatever.
Right.
I'm sneaking back in my dorm so I can have somewhere to live. And I
R-
had, my fridge and my microwave in my car. I moved that
Wow.
back in. Yeah. So sophomore year, I was like, nah, man, I'm good. I ain't trying to do this no more, man. So Army is where it was.
And the reason why I brought it up, because I was when I was reading up some of your story, I seen you give praises to a guy that let you, find out your story, and he let you stay in there. Can you talk a little bit about
Yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah. Rodney Hanshell, man, that's my guy. We still cool to this day.
Mm,
So he was one of the cats that was working at the group home, and you know, 2 years removed. I'm in college or whatever. We crossed paths again. Like we kept in contact, and it just one of those conversations. "Oh, what you got going on? Spring break coming up," and I was like, "Oh no, I'm gonna still be on campus." He was like, the regular talk, like it's
mm-hmm,
closed or whatever. What you gonna do? So he was like,
mm,
"Oh, my son just moved to, I think at this time to like uh, Washington, Seattle,
mm,
with his mom." So he was like, "Yo, the room available if you want it." Da da da. So of course I took it, because it was back here in the city. Um, just a good dude, looked out for me, man. But of course, I ain't want to be a burden to him. So yeah, that
mm.
was part of the reason in my planning to join the army as well. But he definitely looked out, man. Definitely. Again, we keep in contact on the regular now, man.
Right, right.
Yeah,
So I always ask brothers that go into the military the duality of where you have that one fight where they say, how do we fight for a country that doesn't, protect us as black men? And then the other part of it, like, you're standing for something, you're serving for the people, you're serving for the right to have freedom. Can you talk about like being a black, almost like similar to black men who are in the police force and having to
yeah.
have that conversation back and forth? Like, what goes on in your mind with that? Like, how do what's your perspective on that?
I mean, some people view all black people as one, like
Mm,
and we're not monolith,
mm,
so your experience might not be my experience and vice versa. And for
mm,
me, it was more of a survival than the politics of it,
mm,
so again, I was fortunate enough to be in situations, units and things like that, to where I was able to be myself, and
mm,
we focused on the mission. um,
mm,
like now it's probably a different story when we run into each other. Of course, politics and families and all this other stuff play a part now because we grown. I got out in 2011.
mm,
And the guys I deployed with, we'll die for each other at that time. You know what I'm
mm,
saying? We had conflicts with each other internally, but when it was time for the mission, we did the mission.
mm,
But so for me personally, I didn't view it as the country isn't doing anything for me or any other black person. Let me not go that route, because the alternative would have been still, uh, homeless or even
mm,
worse. How some feed myself and provide for my younger brother and sister.
Mm,
Um, and not only that, like the my first deployment was part of the reason why I was able to start my entrepreneurship endeavors. You know what I'm saying? So the money that I raised on deployment, I got my first house built at 22. You know what I'm saying? Like it ain't can't too many people say that.
I'm one of
Um,
them.
yeah, but where else to me that lump sum of money would have came from? You know what I'm saying? In addition to everything else I was doing, yeah, I could have still been in school, um, getting those refund checks or whatever the case is. But again, the military helped with that as well, paying for school. So to me, it was more of a business and strategic move than to not do it based on the views and politics of other people.
No, that makes sense, and I'm always conflicted because I know people being in the military it grants you them, like we have the right to do certain things, and it's not like that in other countries, and so it gives you a lot of that opportunity, but it also is like, man, like how do we keep fighting and going through these things? Are we not are we really one nation and things like that? So to hear your perspective, I always hear black men's perspective and try to figure out what goes through their mind, because it's probably a whole different viewpoint in that sense. um I know a lot of the times, or in the mental health is big on PTSD and having those conversations around that when going into the military. I don't want to ask about that in particular, but I will, if you can shed some light on it. But the returning vets, the people that come home, you see them, almost homeless, or they are going through these things, and it's like, wait, these people serve the country. Why isn't a space for them? Could you speak on that?
Um, so that is two parts because
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of vets who don't know they are entitled to certain things, so they don't even look for it. And
Mm-hmm.
then on the other hand, yes, the paperwork is so long and drawn out that people just give up on the process. So, like for me, what I do is definitely I get with veterans and educate them. At my spot, the Healing Hub, and I make sure that we go through things line by line myself because I'm a disabled vet. Two combat tours, one Iraq, one Afghanistan, and I know how the process was for me. But I was fortunate enough to document everything, so my process was a little bit easier. And I guess, now or then, everything was moving to electronic. So, again, I was in a good unit as well. So I was fortunate. But the previous vets, from the Gulf War and Vietnam Wars and stuff like that you're probably talking about, they, you know, wasn't as educated or tech savvy, so it could be difficult. Um, so yeah, I mean, it all depends too on that journey, Um, so it can be difficult, but I do think that it should be more resources allocated to the veteran population, the homeless population, because they are another disenfranchised population.
Okay, nah, I definitely and I again, just because I don't come from that viewpoint and Liz, I try to talk to the people that have that perspective. So post military, is that when you become Mr. Monopoly, or that's when you go to being in the therapy?
Nah, yeah, post during
Okay.
military. Like people in my city gave me that name because,
Hmm.
like I said, at 22 I got the house built, and then I was helping a lot of different other people in my community who wanted to do businesses, who wanted, who like needed capital, and the banks wouldn't give them a loan or whatever the case is. So if it made sense to me, I'll be willing to help you. So before I knew it, I had so many different investments through the city, and of course people start uh sending other people, so I'm earning,
Referrals.
and yeah,
Hmm.
and they're getting money
Hmm.
for their businesses too. So my portfolio started looking like a monopoly board. And then that's what people started referring to me as Mr. Monopoly.
Hmm.
And it was born. I
Hmm.
ran with it, so it was cool, man.
So you went into the, I guess, essentially the real estate game, and then when does actually going into like going into that therapeutic lens of like, what, let me start going into helping the people?
Yeah, so that didn't happen until like I paused entrepreneurship to do. So I had two houses and two businesses and maybe 7 or 8 investments before I even had a bachelor's. You know what I'm
Wow.
saying? So I paused that. Of course, still getting residual income, helping
Mm-hmm.
different people and stuff like that. You know, got my bachelor's, then I went straight and no break, got my master's. Then I started the LPC process. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the 4,000 hours residency and all that stuff. And you know, here we are now. So that's how that was born.
Okay, so entrepreneurship was in there, and I love talking about entrepreneurship. Um,
Yeah.
the only part that or one part that I feel like doesn't get talked about enough is we talk about the hustle, we talk about the grind, we talk about all that, but there's a mental health part of entrepreneurship, burnout, it's lack of success, those days without eating, or all of those days. Can you talk more of that experience? Because we talk about the glitz and glamour entrepreneurship, but not the depressive days of entrepreneurship and the stress days.
So I think it's a difference though. Because me personally, like I don't have those days to be honest
Mhm.
with you. I guess because I've been doing it for so long, and I get to pick and choose what I want to give my attention to or what I don't want to give my attention to, and I understand, I guess, from a therapeutic lens, the importance of self care, the importance of a support system, being grounded, and stuff like that. So for me, it's more so pacing myself. You know,
Mhm.
I'm not working harder for you than I am for me, you know,
Mm,
and I definitely want to ensure that I give my daughter and my family the proper amount of time that they need, you know, at the end of the day. So for
mhm,
me, it's more about balance. You know, I ensure that I travel, well, pre-COVID travel. I ensure that I get my studies in. I'm learning different things, and I'm, you know, balancing myself, being eclectic and stuff like that, opposed to just work, 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 work. And people also feel that that's part of being an entrepreneurship, but entrepreneurship is more of a mindset, not a formula to accomplish different business tasks. You know, because you can have this awesome idea and just sell it to somebody else,
mm,
you know, and not, you know, stress or whatever.
mm,
But your mindset got to be obtaining and winning and literacy and stuff like that. So for me,
mhm,
I think it's more um, easier that I just balance myself. Like I know how to say no. And I also got a YouTube channel and I got a video on their own burnout. So if people want to know what it is, they can definitely check that out. Um, so for me, yeah, nah, I definitely don't do the overwhelming thing. I do, you know, I guess at this stage I can pretty much pick and choose. Like, you know, I don't really want to do nothing that's hard work. You know what I'm saying? So
That's because you in year, what you say, you 35, 22, you started, you in year 13, you've
yeah,
been at it for a little while. So I'm
that's
thinking
it,
about when you
man.
starting out and you start to, because mind you, I'm starting to get into that realm of like, man, you don't gotta go 16 hours like straight, like, because they preach that though. I don't sleep, or I don't, you know what I mean, and grind, and then you realize you could do more executing, like, sharpening the knife and then going to chop that tree down and just keep chopping and with a dull knife. So just realizing like, oh, you could do more with less.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like you said, people glorify not resting, which is the
Mm,
opposite. So for me, again, like you'll be surprised. Like right now, 4 properties, 5 businesses that are profitable, and over 17 investments from North Carolina, DC, and Virginia.
mm,
And my day, like if you come shadow me for a day, like my
mm.
daughter tell me all the time, like, Dad, you don't never work. Like, you know what I mean? That's cause I'm good. I'm chilling. You know,
Right.
like I'll see a client here and two or there since we virtual.
Mm,
Like today, I think I seen 3 clients. You know what I mean? That's what my day consists of today.
mm.
Annoying her and seeing those 3 clients, and I'm chilling. And most of the time, that's what it is. Now,
Mm,
you know, some days I do like do extra tasks or something like that if I'm researching something else to see if I want to get involved in or something like that. But for the most part, like my day consists of my family and me, and you know, because everything else is pretty much structured itself, you know.
mm,
But I hear it all the time, like, nah, you got to stay up, sun up to sundown. You got to do. No,
mm.
you don't. Like, you shouldn't want that. If you got to do it that way, you know, some people can say that they work hard now so they can chill later. I'm cool with that. That makes sense. But
Mm,
if that's your constant, if it's no other side to that,
Mm-hmm.
it can be detrimental because you're not resting, you're not spending time with your family. You're not really happy because you going day to day. Now you giving attitude and resentment to people who don't even deserve it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You snapping at your kids and your lady because they ask you a simple question, but you frustrated or you hungry. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mm-hmm.
those
Right,
are
right, right.
so for me, it's more about, nah, I'm good. I don't even want to get involved. Or like if somebody presents something to me, like, yo, I ain't got time right now, boss. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Like that's why I ain't on Clubhouse. You know what I mean?
Right,
I'm
right,
on my
right.
phone enough. Like people ask me all the time, like, yo, you'll be dope on Clubhouse, da, 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 or I need you to help me speak on it. Nah, I ain't on Clubhouse. I don't got time. Like my phone is in my hand too much now. So the extra stuff, I don't, I know my limits, I know my boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
and I enforce those things. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's more about that. It's more about being happy with self and my family taken care of. So that additional stuff, I don't worry about, bro. If it's gonna lead to me stressing or having to do extra, and I ain't gonna be able to see my daughter or my lady or something like that, I'm good. I don't. Nah.
Nah, I definitely understand. Well, I'm understanding that. I'm gonna ask you a question. Don't let me forget it because I'm entering my 30s now. I'm
Yeah.
29. I'll be 30 this year, and you at that midway point. So I want some brotherly advice on like what to expect going into the 30s. But um, you talked big about family, and I know how important it is. I seen you teaching your daughter how to build a computer, and
Yeah.
I see you always out with what you say the cheesy date with the
Yeah. Cheesy
missus.
dates. Yep.
So my question more so goes around to the fact of a lot of uh a lot of people say men don't know how to be men or husbands or fathers because they didn't have that model to follow after. How were you able to, or what was the thing that made you go the opposite way of like, what, I didn't have, I lost my father at an early age, but I also can know how to do this thing, I can handle this thing, because we come from a lot of those communities where that's a typical story.
Yeah, nah, I mean that is a prevalent thing within our demographic, but on the other side of I don't know what the heck I'm doing is like, oh, let me do this because I didn't have it. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm,
So it's that you got to find that balance. You got to find what works.
mhm,
And again, like you got to be motivated to break those cycles. Because um, I didn't have that foundation. I didn't
mhm,
have that guidance, that coaching, that mentoring, that fatherhood. So for me, I have to ensure that I'm doing those things, but also, I would definitely caution people to not um, be so eager to do those things that they, overcompensate and,
mhm,
have a poor balance with our family because that can happen too. In
mhm.
some cases, they can give to their children or to their partner or whatever the case is, and now they're being taken advantage of or they're drained or whatever the case is. So you definitely got to have that balance. And also, like a lot of people talk down on single parent households dynamics so much that they fail to mention that just because it's a two-parent household doesn't mean it's a healthy household. You know what I'm saying? Because realistically, um, like my daughter mom and I are not together, but that works, because I much rather my daughter see both of us individually happy than to be in that environment to where it's cantankerous, because now she's learning something else. She's learning to argue, she's learning to um confrontational and stuff like that, so it can go both ways.
No, I definitely understand that. And it was one of the things that what you said. I had that within my relationship. We'll be together 10 years starting this year, July 15th this year. And we were toxic, two toxic people coming, two toxic, different things. And we had to grow together, learn each other, grow and be able to build that, function as one. So I definitely can understand that because it's like, oh, it was two of y'all. No, sometimes it's just twice as bad now. So as opposed to it being once as bad. But how I don't know parameter around your relationship, but you're making it work right now with your relationship. You're supporting, or you're highlighting black love, and you make sure to, show I'm with my lady, like I'm proud to be with my lady. How do you how do y'all survive this social media, like, these this when people saying dating is hard and all of these different things, and being able to make it work, basically?
Communication. It's also a communication video on my YouTube as well. But those things are important. Trust is important. Knowing your partner is important. You know who you got with, or you know who you want to be with, right? So before you even take it further, just ensure that you guys are compatible. Just ensure that you guys want the same things. I know for us, it's easier for me to highlight our relationship because we grounded. We know why we in this thing, and at the end of the day, we know what the mission is. Like our confrontations or our disagreements aren't like major things, like so we're able to communicate effectively and talk about these things, and we're able to. So the issue is in some relationships is people view each other as the problem. Like the problem is the problem. You two are supposed to handle the problem together, but they view it as the opposite. So
Mm,
that can be a hindrance. But for us, we take tasks, we grow through tasks, and we just been fortunate. We just been in a good place, with the family and
mm,
community we serve. We both understand it too, and I think both of us are driven. So the things that in previous relationships that were hindrances, um, aren't in this relationship, and one of those major things was entrepreneurship. Um, because I am a hustler and I'm willing to take risk, so certain partners, previous partners, regardless if they was putting money up or not, they just didn't want to be a part of it because for them it could have been a potential situation to where it can become unsecure, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Like if this house didn't sell or this business doesn't profit or whatever, like, now how we gonna eat or how we gonna shop or how we gonna travel,
mm,
so I understood that. But this partner now, she an entrepreneur too. So it's more
mm,
encouragement, it's more strategic planning, you know what I'm saying? It's more of
mm,
a compatibility and like, nah, we can do it, oh, you gonna do it that way. Let me help you, like it's more of that opposed to nah, I don't think it's gonna work. You know what I mean? So we
mm.
we address everything as a unit, as far as everything that we planning to do. So it's more fortunate that way.
I like that. And we got away from it, and I didn't really got to ask it the way that I wanted to ask it. The relationship between with you and your daughter. I see you say I'm the annoying dad, and you proud of it. Like I'm making sure my presence
Yeah,
is felt.
got to. Realistically, there are gonna be some guys who are probably unbecoming um, of a man, that are potentially approach her.
Mm,
But I want her to be able to recognize that of the foundation that I've led. You know what I'm saying?
mm,
Like, like on weekends or something when she hear me vacuuming loud, waking her up. Like she's gonna remember that in
mhm,
20 years if this guy say, "Oh no, cleaning up is the woman's job." In her mind, she's gonna be like, "Nah, my dad used to clean up every Saturday, waking me." You know what I'm saying? Or if she
mhm,
see me cooking and getting the door for my lady and doing all these other qualities, she'll know like, "No, my dad do it. Why you can't?" You know what I'm saying? I want
mm,
that to be the what she's accustomed to so she don't fall victim to this this
mhm,
unbecoming person. Just what I mean, I want her to
mhm,
have a certain standard of quality. I
mhm,
no, I've seen my dad do XYZ. So what you
mhm,
mean you can't do it? Like
mhm,
I don't want her to have to do certain things or accept certain things based on that. So yeah, to her, of course, now she's 8 years old, so it is annoying. Dad, why you got to do that? Why you can't just vacuum later? Why you can't let me? So it's to me it's programming, but to her it's annoying. You know what I'm saying?
mhm,
But in 20 years, when she have her own kids and in her own relationship, it's gonna click. Like, he used to do this.
Mm.
based on that. So that's, to me, that's what it is.
And you setting that precedence early and setting that bar and that standard that it's like up to live up to and to live by. Like, all right, this is
Yeah.
what you look for and this is what he's supposed to do, and vice versa.
Hmm.
um you one more piece on that before I transition too, because I do want to get to the journal and I do want to get to the hub and all of the other things you got
Yeah.
going on up to today. um Entrepreneurship and fatherhood. I know early on for me, it was a struggle because it was all in on entrepreneurship. Like, didn't have the background, didn't have the knowledge, didn't have any of the education behind it. So it was like whatever I brought in, he either had to go to bills or had to go back into the business. And that's not always a good thing. You know what I mean? And still learning to this day about it. Uh my question is, how did you balance that when those deals may or may not have came through, or when the money wasn't looking all the way through that time? Like, how was that moment when you were first starting out with fatherhood as well? It was 8 years ago, so how was that?
It was dope, man. I was fortunate enough to be able to like only invest in things that I seen can make immediate profit, or a big enough profit that would carry me, to where it needed to be. And as far as entrepreneurship and fatherhood, man, my daughter's 8 years old now, and I involve her in a lot of different things entrepreneurship wise. Like when I had my party bus, like she would do, like if she's with me, she'll come on the party bus, do the announcements, stay in your seats, don't move while the bus is moving type things. Just the customer stuff like flight attendants doing stuff like that. At the Healing Hub, she's there feeding the less fortunate. She's there passing on papers or picking up chairs and stuff like that. So she's getting that work ethic now as well. But the balance too came, that was my priority, to making sure they can eat. You know what I'm saying? Like at the end of the day, I can't tell her like, oh, she can't get XYZ because I don't have the funds for it. That's the purpose
Mm-hmm.
of us hustling now. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, this is you one day. All of this
Mm-hmm.
is yours. You ain't got to worry about this. So for
Right.
me, it's more so prioritizing what I can. Um, and like you said, I've been in it for a minute, so I'm able to say, oh, cool. If I put 20,000 in this, out that 20 will start coming back immediately,
Mm-hmm.
or is it gonna take a year for it to come? So I'm able to say, nah, I'm good, boss, or yeah, I got you, because I seen that it's gonna start coming back, the following month or however we structure the deal. And
Mm-hmm.
then also too, like I said, like right now, currently, I got over maybe 17 investments, and I structure them where some of them pay out monthly, some of them pay out quarterly, or either some of them are early out of the month. So either way,
Something
like,
coming from somewhere.
yeah, so that's,
Mm-hmm.
that's a tip that you can use
I was
too.
about to say free game.
Yeah, because and in most cases, people do, like, think about it. Like right now, all of your bills that you pay out are probably on a monthly basis.
Mm-hmm.
But think about it, if you were able to pay it every other month, or each quarter. You know what I'm saying? That'll
Mm-hmm.
help you and help whoever your creditor is. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because for them on the outside, they get more of the interest, but for you, you're able to save a little bit more. So for
Mm-hmm.
me, that's just something that I put out there. Like, oh no, we can do this deal. You can pay me back monthly, or you can pay me back every other month, or you can pay me back quarterly.
Mm-hmm.
And they pick and choose how they want to do it. But for me, you know, either way, I got some coming in.
Right.
Um, and so this month is going to be X coming in. Next month might be a little bit bigger because that's what I'm saying? Then the quarter,
Right.
of course, so for me, I just found it easier to do that. And then people appreciate that because it ain't that much pressure on them. They know, like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I ain't got to bill this month. I can, I can save more. So for
Right.
me, it's just little stuff that I picked up, and I do that to help my community too.
Mm-hmm. Nah, that's definitely, again, that's 13 years. You know how they talk about 10,000 hours. That's a long. I mean, you pick these things up along the way and along the journey, and now you got to this point at an early age too,
Yeah.
35. So again, this is a personal question that I want to ask about the Healing Hub. That transition from 30 going into the 30s from the 20s. What were some of the differences and changes you had to make before yourself going into that next bracket?
Not to be honest with you, man. Like, so, you got the chronological age, then you got the maturity. You
Hey.
know, those things are different. Like, so
Mm-hmm.
my maturity started a long time ago. So I was
Mm-hmm.
already on, those older things, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So the transition wasn't there. And you got to remember, for me, earlier on, it was survival. So from 16, being on my own, my mindset was always, I got to eat, I got to hustle, I got to make sure my family good. So those things just continue to carry on, but
Mm-hmm.
now it's a more of a grander scale because I'm able to, flip more money and do different things with my family and all that. And I have a daughter opposed to when I did then. So
Nah, it
like
makes a
my
lot of
shift,
sense.
yeah, my shift wasn't as, like I guess what you're talking about is the people who like party in our
Mm-hmm.
20s and now going to the nah,
Mm-hmm.
mine is more so like, yo, eat, stack bread, get money, help people. You know what I'm saying? So my like that continued, what I'm saying? Like probably
Mm-hmm.
going into my 40s, it'll probably just be, like travel now or,
Mm-hmm.
but for me, I think my transition from then to now has been the same. Like, yo, eat, take care of your family, get more money, invest more in people and community and stuff like that.
Okay. No, it makes sense. I always think about the young brothers out there and that's listening, and they may pick this podcast and listen to it, and they can get them gems from the people that been there before them.
Yeah, nah, some people definitely need that transition to, taking more serious, whether that's finding a career, whether that's settling down or not splurging as much,
Mm-hmm.
partying as much and stuff like that. And then now, of course, taking it more seriously to that passion and the crafts and,
Mm-hmm.
not being as promiscuous and, settling down. So some people do need that transition. I
Mm-hmm.
just been fortunate, excuse me, that I've been on that
On that,
wave, like
yeah.
yeah, that I was forced in it,
Mm,
and I just stayed.
nah, I think you like the benefits of it once you
Yeah,
was
nah, you might as well
back.
because I don't have to look over my shoulder like per
Mm-hmm.
se, like being black in America, I have to, but like I don't got to worry about the dope boys or going to
Mm-hmm.
jail, whatever the case is, based on that. Like those, it's a difference potentially in risk that they potentially take that I
Mm-hmm.
don't take. You know what I'm saying? Like credit over 780, money in the bank and stuff like that. So my stresses aren't as intense as theirs.
Nah, I definitely understand that. I had to, transition on some of those ends and prioritize some of those things. So I definitely could relate. Talk about the Healing Hub and how that came about. I seen it was like a former cell phone store or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. So it's right next door to my barber shop, man. So it was an empty building beside the barber shop,
Light
and every
flex.
yeah, every time I go, I'm like, oh man, this joint's still empty. This joint's still empty. So my barber, she was like, yo, just call the number. Are they the same landlord who own this or whatever? And it's about the size of this. So I was like, all right, cool. So that next day, I called, set up an appointment, liked it. It was it was beat down, but it was for a good price for that side of town because they gentrifying, they doing so much other stuff. So pretty much, man, I was like, all right, cool, we doing it. So I did it, gutted it, fixed it up, and the rest was history. So I do my outpatient there pre-pandemic. I had a psychiatrist there, yoga, Zumba, mindfulness, Reiki, massage. Then I do host different events for the community. Like we fed it less fortunate every third Saturday, first time home buying seminars, weapons classes, voter registration, restoration of rights, LGBTQ seminars, just so many different things that the community was lacking. I just, collectively put them all in this one spot. And I didn't use my own resources, no grants or no, other funding besides my funding. So I was just fortunate. And some people donate too, like clothes and supplies and stuff like that, back to school stuff. But everything else was out of pocket, man. I wanted to do it for the community, and I'm just fortunate enough that people were able to gain and benefit from it.
And I was going to ask, where did that idea come from? And it sounds like from what you seen as a need, and you was like, I want to put all these needs in one spot and give it to the community.
Definitely, that's what it was. So originally, though, the idea was to put a bunch of therapists in one spot. So the community can have access to black therapists, to therapists who are culturally competent and look like them. But a lot of therapists that I ran into, they either had that practice or just was in fear of going into practice, or, just didn't have that collective mindset. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, all right, cool. Well, hey, it's other healers out there.
Mm,
Somebody might not want to do therapy, but they can benefit from yoga, or somebody might not want to do yoga, but they can benefit from a massage, and vice versa. So I just started thinking like that, and then it was a hit, man. It came out, just having all those collective services in one spot was beneficial, and
mm.
everybody was black too. So I was fortunate of that.
Yeah, that's that integrated services and having all of those in one spot, man. And then, like you said, all being black, that you don't come too far around that where it's all centralized in one space. And I like that what you said,
Definitely,
the
man.
other healers out there. So
Yeah, because that yoga, that mindfulness, that Zumba, meditation, all of that too. Reiki,
mm,
that's definitely a part of healing. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I call it the healing hub.
yeah,
Wrap around holistically.
yes, sir, yes, sir. So what came first, the mental heal shirts or the journal? Which one came and preceded one another?
Yeah, the shirts. So the movement was so I started the movement after grad school, but it stemmed from an assignment in grad school. You probably had the assignment too. If it's one population you can work with, who would it be? Blah blah blah. So some people in my cohort chose LGBTQ or women's rights or um, sex workers, veterans, stuff like that, homelessness. And initially I chose veterans too, but then I realized like, oh man, the men population, they're always underserved, whether it's lack of service or it's their ego not wanting them to go or whatever the case is. So I took that on as a task, man, and then it was a good assignment. So fast forward, I finished grad school, started at this private practice called LaBelle, phenomenal practice, woman dominant practice. Um, and for 2 years I was the only male on staff, so I was they do phenomenal work in the community for women. So I used to tease the owner all the time like, yo, when we gonna do something for men, when we gonna do something for men. So I just remember back to this assignment, and then I was put this together, and we did a seminar at my art gallery, men and mental health, and about 25 people showed up. And then of course started doing them quarterly or whatever, and then I was stuck at a train, and I got a Tesla, so I just started doodling, a logo. So you see it still in my same handwriting.
Wow,
And for me, yeah, I started wearing it, just for me, a conversation starter, attention getter, and stuff like that. And before I knew it, I had sold over 1,000 because it was resonating with people. People like, oh
wow.
man, my dad, my stubborn uncle or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? It just became like, oh yeah, I want to support. I want to support. So of course, I continue to do seminars quarterly or whatever, and they just continue to grow from 65 in attendance and stuff like that pre-COVID. And then yeah, it just flew like that, man. I just was fortunate, and then of course speaking engagements came, and other opportunities came, and then from being in practice, different assignments that I give my clients or questions that people inbox me or email me and stuff like that. I'm like, yo, you know what, let me just put this in the book, and
Mm-hmm.
put it out to the masses. So that's how the
Mm-hmm.
book was formulated, and that's how that came. I've just been fortunate enough to it capture, some for the young men, the men themselves, and then wives can buy it, give it to their husband. They do a couple assignments, give the book back, and of course, my fellow therapists got into the lobbies or use it in our sessions as icebreakers or just as homework assignments. So it's been received well, man. It's been doing good.
Nah, and I know. Go get the journal. I'll put the link and everything in the description when you guys see this, so you'll see be able to get to the shirts and everything that he has going on down below. Um, and I want you all to get the book, but I'm hoping he can give us a few, maybe like two or three from the journal. Like what? And again, I know it's a very complex question, so I just want you to get the tip of the iceberg. What do men need to heal?
Um, a strong support system is one. That's definitely helped, them benefit the collective. Like it's impossible for people to do things themselves and stay consistently with it. But if you have a strong support system, you can benefit from that. So that's definitely one thing that you can do. Surround yourself with people who hold you accountable, who won't enable you, because it is a difference. Um, that's one thing. And then two, like, ignore the perception of others. A lot of people aren't moving in the direction that they were called to or that they want to, just because the next person beside them is going to say something or not agree with it, you know. So ignore the perception of others. Do what you got to do for you and your family. Um, and another thing is educate yourself. Like, it's so many men now who are numb and desensitized just simply because they are not being educated on things that are happening. Whether that's the number one killer right now of African American men is heart disease. Heart disease can come from, of course, your physical being neglected, but also your mental health. Like, the mind and the body is connected. So if you're overstressing or you're hyper vigilant or you just, just being in situations to where you're anxious and stuff like that, all of those can cause you to have heart issues. And or if from the physical side, if you're not doing proper nutrition, you're not working out, you're not sleeping properly, that can also cause you to have heart issues as well, you know. And let's not talk about, of course, the um other symptoms of depression or unresolved trauma and grief and stuff like that. Like, those things are heavy within our community that the people don't pay attention to, you know, and more people should, you know, frankly, um, because we want to create a legacy and break those generational cycles.
I'm gonna go one level down, or not even down, but one level deeper of it. What do young boys? What can we do to better support young boys? Because I know you're gonna say it's the support. It's the same thing that we men need to help. Is what we need to do with our young boys. But how do we support our young boys a lot better so they don't have to go through the healing process?
Nah, I mean, either way, they still should go through a healing process,
Mm,
because even if they get information, like, who's to say it's the correct information? So
mm,
I would still say um, healing is essential. You know, it's one of those things that's ongoing, whether you're young or whether you're 100. Like, even at 100, you still should be trying to seek to be better, to be holistic within yourself. But I definitely would suggest that, you know, if you're a young brother out there, man, get you a mentor, somebody that's becoming somebody that's a positive model, not only within the family, within themselves, but of course in the community. Get you somebody too that will um, be direct and be real with you. No yes man. You don't want nobody that'll tell you anything. You want somebody to check you on your behaviors, whether that's you being reckless or promiscuous or just in a tough situation. Like, sometimes you need to be held accountable and you need to be checked. Like, nah, dog, that ain't right. You
mm,
know, and I think it's not a lot of that in certain situations, because more than likely you're hanging with somebody who's going to enable you or who's going to do the same behaviors you're doing. So
mm.
now either you're not growing or both of you guys are in trouble together. You know what I'm saying?
Nah,
So
it's true.
yeah, so it has to be a change. You have to have somebody around you or that you can reach out to that will give you the insight that you probably don't want to hear, but you need to hear.
Nah, I got you. One of my final questions before we wrap up is you started another movement, and I don't know if it's under the same umbrella. It's coming from you, so I'm assuming it is. But the Black Therapist Heal Thyself. How what was the meaning behind that movement? How did it get started? What were you thinking behind it?
Yeah. And that's not really a movement, man. Heal thyself is just something that I always say. But I put that out the same time in 2018 that I put out the mental heal movement. That
Mm,
one, mental heal, just took off more rapidly. One, because men are often neglected, but two, the black therapist one, of course, and not a lot of black therapists within the field. So that one didn't pop as much. Like, a lot of therapists look out, they support it or whatever, but it's not really a thing. It's more so like me connecting with other black therapists and bouncing ideas and helping them where they need it in different groups and stuff like that. Bro, I want to give the information out. You know what I'm
mm,
saying? So I want people to prevent some of the things that I've had to endure. I already went through it. Like, let me help you so you
mm.
wouldn't have to. So that's what that is.
Definitely. Well, I don't want to hold too much of your time. I know you're a busy man. Is there any final thoughts, any final things you want to leave upon the people?
Ah, man, I definitely appreciate you having me on your platform. Keep up the good work. You my dog, man. Also, you guys over at Black Man Hill doing phenomenal work as usual. Tell Taz, Reggie, I said what's up.
Mm.
Um, yeah, man, people can hit me up if they need to. mentoheal.com, mentoheal.com. From there, they can hit me on the gram. A link to purchase the book is on there. Also, my YouTube link is on there. Um, different videos and stuff that people can benefit from. So it's also a donation link on there too if they want to help a young brother out, with services or resources and stuff like that.
Yes, sir. We gotta have you back on King's Corner as well to drop some jewels and gems.
Definitely, man. Whatever y'all need, we'll figure it out.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. On that note, follow, subscribe. Make sure you connect with James. He's very open. He's very candid about the work that he does. You could just go off his page for days and get information. So I definitely am vouching for it. So please go check him out. Go get the journal. Go get the shirts. And then support the movement. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Share. Do all them good things. Leave a review because that helps in the future to give great conversations and shit and keep doing this type of work and making sure we're healing the community. And remember that this platform has never been about a replacement to therapy. It's an alternative place where people share therapeutic stories. Thank you for listening.